No one ever really talks about how eerie some of these massive research corporations are, especially the ones where you have no idea what they're researching. Not only are they heavily guarded by security, but many of them also require their employees to sign NDAs and surrender their biometric data. All of this so they can make sure the right people get in and nothing gets out. But what if I told you that I found a tape from inside of one of them? This video belonging to the Async Research Institute surfaced online, and it showed the horrifying events that took place on June 19th, 1990. The person who took the footage was identified to be someone with the first initial N and the last name Warren. And as it begins, he appears to be hiding in the corner of this uncanny yellow space, similar to an old office building but with empty rooms and hallways that look exactly the same. Well, not exactly the same, just very similar. He is breathing heavily as he scans the place, clearly afraid of something. When nothing appears, he begins to make a run for it, still being cautious of what might be around the corner. He makes it to the small hallway and enters a room full of equipment. As he sits down at the radio, he tries to call for help, explaining that there is something else there with him. He begs for someone to come get him, but nobody answers. And then he hears something behind him. He quickly stands up, pointing the camera directly down a nearly identical hallway from the one that he came through. Then suddenly, a screech pierces through the room and a seagull is thrown inside, now seemingly lying dead on the floor. If it were me in this situation, I would have ran the opposite direction, but he decides to walk slowly towards it. He gets very close to examine it and wonders how the hell it could have gotten inside. But then it unexpectedly screeches before flying into an awkwardly placed mezzanine on the ceiling. He takes a few steps forward to follow it, but then something urges him to turn around and look down that hallway again. He begins walking towards it, looking back at least one more time before entering. As he slowly inches his way into the room, my anxiety and fear nearly matches his. He peeks the camera around the corner and sees a wall with two helms embedded into it, and a lamp sitting right in front illuminating a part of that space. He continues walking into a larger yet much darker hallway leading up to a lit space with a banner hanging from inside of the ceiling. Not only that, but there is also furniture strangely embedded into the wall the same way that the helms were. He is caught off guard when he sees a pile of bird feathers and leaves lying on the floor, until seconds later he hears a door open. In this situation, what would you do? Well, he does what many of us would have done. He takes off running in the opposite direction, bolting through hallways that feel like a maze before finding himself in a room that's painted like a tropical island. But it's a dead end. The only door inside of it will not open, and his only choice now is to either stay and wait for it to find him or to make a run for it. Of course, he ran, but little did he know whatever was chasing after him was waiting right outside of the door. Suddenly, the camera falls to the ground and all we can hear are his screams before the footage ends. Backrooms is Kane Parson's directorial debut and is a film adaptation of the YouTube series he created in 2022. But the concept of this uncanny place originated years before. In May 2019, an anonymous 4chan post shared a photo of this room with yellow walls lit by fluorescent lights. Under that photo, another user left a reply. It said, "If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the back rooms." Soon we would learn that this photo was taken from a real place in 2022, a space that used to be an old furniture store in Oshkosh, Wisconsin called Roner's Home Furnishing. When the owner Tom decided to pivot from selling furniture to just flooring, he closed the store and moved down the street, leaving this one vacant and completely abandoned for nearly a decade until it was sold in 2002. Little did Tom know that a photo of his old abandoned furniture store would become an anchor for one of the most anticipated films of 2026. And if you want to know what happened in the back rooms, then get comfortable because this is House of Spoilers. The film opens with a child's hand reaching upwards as it presses into wet concrete. When the camera angle shifts, it's revealed to be a girl and her mother crouching down staring at the ground, while a huge crane holding debris raises over their heads before allowing it to drop. Now, if you're anything like me, you are confused. until it is revealed that it's just a memory being combined with reality. The little girl is now Dr. Mary Klein, and she is watching as her childhood home is being demolished. From the look on her face, it is clear there's a lot of mixed emotions while watching this happen. And as she glares at the sledgehammer crack through the driveway, she can't help but to notice her and her mother's molded handprints in the concrete, a physical memory that she will go on to salvage a piece of. Dr. Mary Klein is a therapist who also struggles with the things that took place when she was a child, but she manages to set those things aside every single day to help her patients, one of which is a man named Clark. Clark is the owner of a furniture store called Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire, and this became his job after he failed at his dreams of becoming an architect. As much as he does not want to admit it to Mary, his store is failing also. No one is coming in and no furniture is going out. But that's not the only struggle that he is facing. His behavior pushes people away, and the greatest proof of this is the day that his wife left him. Now he's just alone, and because of how his brain is wired, he feels that he deserves to be. That's when Mary decides to have him roleplay the night that his wife kicked him out of the house. And that is also where his true feelings and insecurities reveal themselves. He can be pretty temperamental and also not very kind to the person who is against him. Once he reaches his breaking point, Mary asks how he feels, and it's regretful. He says that he didn't mean to lose his temper, but Mary reaffirms that that was the point of this whole exercise. He needs to feel those emotions and create a path to move forward. That is where their session ends and our introduction to Clark's daily life begins. We see him at the store as he is trying his best to film a commercial dressed as a pirate, all to try and attract customers and get them to come inside. But he quickly gets fed up with this gag when his chair breaks from right under him. That's when he gives up and tells Kat, his only employee, to open the store, which had already been open this entire time. That's when Bobby, the cameraman, decides to ask him a question, but Clark is not here for it. He completely shuts him down and walks away to his office. From what we can see inside of his office, it is pretty cluttered. There's paperwork everywhere and drawings of floor plans all over the walls. But this place seems to be a safe haven or a comfort place for him. That is when a maintenance man arrives and we learn that not only is the store failing, but money is being drained from it due to high utility bills. But the strange part is, everything seems to be working just fine. That's when Clark decides to bring up the random outages that he's been experiencing. So then he and the maintenance man go downstairs to check the breaker box. Every single switch seems to work just fine, but then they notice a red one that's awkwardly placed in the box. They flip it, but nothing seems to happen. Later that night, we learn that Clark is also living at the store and has set up his own space with inventory, which, I mean, valid, I would probably do the same too. And as he sits on the bed watching TV, something strange happens. It suddenly shuts off. He tries to turn it back on, but it doesn't work. Instead, all of the lights in the store begin flickering before shutting off again. He just sighs, then looks over at the nightstand where he placed a photo of him and his wife. The fact that he put that photo there reveals that he does miss her, while at the same time, he holds a lot of resentment towards her. And this clearly is an internal conflict that he isn't willing to confront. And we know this because that night he literally drove to their house and sat outside, just watching nothing through their front window. On a following night, he sat in his makeshift bedroom at the store and watched as his competition's commercial blared on the TV. That is when it happened again. And when the TV shuts off, it is Clark's last straw. He ran downstairs to the breaker box and flipped all of the switches, but oddly enough, none of the lights turn off. That's when he flipped the red switch. Then unexpectedly, all of the lights shut off. He tried to turn them on again, but they wouldn't. And as he made his way to the stairs, something caught his attention. A sliver of light gleaming through the middle of the wall. He walks over to examine it, and when he leans his body against it, he falls straight through. Now he's standing in this room with fluorescent lights and yellow monochrome wallpaper. In the middle of the room is furniture stacked nearly to the ceiling. He turns back to the wall and reaches his hand inside before stepping through again, just to be sure he really saw what he saw. And after walking through again, he realized, this is real. Clark decides to walk further into this uncanny place, finding hallways and doors, all a bit different than the others, leading to similar places. He sees a stop sign randomly placed, a mangled seagull lying on the floor. Then he hears a voice as he turns around the corner. He can't see who it is, but there is a figure standing there. When he gets closer, he realizes that it's a life-size cutout of a caveman, and the voice that he was hearing was a loop of greetings in a number of different languages, an element that was sourced directly from the 1977 NASA Voyager Golden Record. For the ones who don't know, NASA sent this 2-inch gold-plated copper phonograph disc into space, and alongside this accumulation of greeting messages, they also included Earth sounds, music, and images. The main purpose of this project was to introduce Earth to any extraterrestrial civilizations that may be out in deep space. So with that knowledge, why is it in the back rooms? Well, we'll get to that very soon because Clark just found a small hidden door inside of one of the rooms. He breaks it open and finds this duffel bag sitting inside. He pulls it out and begins rummaging through it, and that's where he finds a number of tapes and CDs. One seems to be about a pathway, and another one says Lee Encounter, dated in 1990. There's also a busted open lockbox with tons more, but what catches his attention is the badge. It's for a company called Async, and it belongs to a man named Naren Warren. It says he's a field operations manager, and although his badge expired in 1991, we know that it really expired long before then. And if you didn't catch on by now, he was the one who captured the footage in the very beginning of this video. Clark drags the bag aside and calls out to anyone who might be inside of this square-shaped tunnel, but no one answers. So he begins crawling through it, making anyone who has claustrophobia feel very uncomfortable. But don't worry, he manages to make it through. And of course it leads to another room, but this one is even more strange than the last. There are shoes somehow embedded in the floor. And that chair that he broke in his commercial is also there too, just bigger and slanted. He looks to one side of the room that forms into a bit of an incline to reach another smaller door, then glances down at the square-shaped hole in the floor next to the chair. As he is curiously peering into the space, he is caught off guard. That is because there's a loud thud coming from the room where he left the duffel bag. And as he inches his way towards the tunnel, he looks through before asking if anyone's there. But all he is met with is silence. And not just any silence, a very strange one. And that is because the recorder has stopped as well. When he realizes this, he slowly begins to back away, which is in his best interest because the next thing he would hear is a forceful strike and then see the caveman cutout being thrown across the room. After that, he begins quickly walking away, but not fast enough for me. He climbed up that small incline in the wall and entered through that tiny door, which ended up leading him back to the stop sign where he was at before. That's when he begins to fearfully jog, looking for an exit. Luckily, he found the stack of furniture that he passed when he first entered, but as he tries to go back through the wall, it doesn't work. He begins feeling all over the place, constantly looking back because he knows his time is running out. That's when he realizes he's just in the wrong spot. After a couple steps to the side, he finds it and runs straight through. But something compelled him to quickly run back inside of there and grab a stool. Now at this moment, I thought he was going to start selling backroom furniture. But what really happened is that he just had an unbelievable experience. And the only way that he would know if it's real is if he brought proof of it back with him to reality. Once he did, he sat down on the stool in fear and disbelief. And I'm sure he was thinking, how is anyone going to believe what just happened? On a following day, Clark rushes into his appointment with Dr. Mary. He was considerably late and so wired that he couldn't even sit down. As he paced back and forth, Mary asked how he was doing, and he laughed, sarcastically asking her, how did he look like he was doing? It was a rhetorical question because he knew he looked like shit. She asked if he was intoxicated, and he jokingly suggested that the reason why he looked like shit is because he hadn't had a drink. He came to this appointment wanting to tell Mary about what he discovered, but he had to be very cautious about doing so. Before revealing anything, he asked Mary if she had ever 5150'd someone before, and she revealed that she only had done it a few times. For the ones who don't know, 5150 is a code used in healthcare where a patient can be involuntarily placed in a 72-hour psychiatric hold. And that is only done if the healthcare professional feels that the patient is a danger to themselves or others. others, or in other cases, cannot get basic essentials like food, clothes, or a safe place to live because of their mental illness. And based on what Clark is about to share, he feared that that might have been a possibility for him. But he takes the chance anyway and tells her. He explains everything he saw and how none of it makes sense, telling her that this place is like if you described a dog to someone who's never seen a dog before and then told them to draw it. It might look similar to a dog, but if you take a closer look, that's when he realizes that she doesn't believe him. She confirms that his revelation is fantastical, but it's not dangerous, giving him reassurance that he can continue. And you can just see the wonder in his eyes and hear the excitement in his voice the more he talks about it, comparing how massive and maze-like it is to the New York subway system. That's when he pulls out a map that he drew of the place and hands it to Mary, saying that it's so big that sometimes he's afraid that he's going to get lost in there. From this map, it is clear that he's been down there many times since his first encounter, and it already seems like he's willing to go back again. As Mary looks at the map, she asks why he thinks no one else has found this place, and he suggests it's because of the location. No one would have ever thought to look down there. But it's still very clear to him that she does not believe him. And the fact that she brought up drinking again, he realizes that there's no getting through to her. So he stands up, grabs the map from her, and promises that he will come back with proof. And when he does, he expects a serious apology from her. From there, Clark goes to Kat's house, asking if she and her boyfriend with the camera can come to the store the next day. He offers to pay them extra and makes sure to ask Bobby if he can bring the camera. When the next day comes, Bobby begins filming the downstairs space at the furniture store. And in the background, we can see a table full of papers with layout drawings all over them, alongside all the things that Clark has brought back from this place. There's also drawings of this place on a large whiteboard propped against the wall in the background. The camera pans to Clark putting ropes inside of a bag, claiming it's to tie themselves up for an unknown reason. Bobby asks again, why are they there? And Clark repeats again, it's for research. That's when he shows them the door, but they're confused. They soon learn that it's not just a wall with tape around it, and when they finally step through, they are terrified. Clark takes them to this area that we've never seen before. There's a weird staircase and a tiny hallway that only a mouse could fit through. That's when the camera cuts to Clark tying a rope around Bobby as he gives us a visual down the steep hallway. It's pretty much a slide at this point, and the only way that they're gonna get him back up there is with that rope. Kat hates this plan, but Bobby is up for it. Once he gets down there, he lands in this dimly lit and dingy room. The first thing he sees is that there are piles of clothes everywhere. And this room is very strange because it's almost like it was flipped on its side. He goes into one of the rooms and sees at the top of one of these piles of clothes is his t-shirt. The same t-shirt he was wearing when he was filming the commercial for Clark. This is strange, but nothing too alarming. Kat is still worried and begins calling out for him, but he reassures her that he's fine. Little did he know, he was about to be far from it. In one of the darker rooms, he sees a flickering light. As he peers inside, he encounters something so terrifying that he immediately runs back to that entrance, telling them to pull him up. While they are, he's impatient and begins crawling up there himself. And thankfully, he makes it, immediately handing the camera to Clark. He is stressed and all he wants is for them to take this rope off of him. But that's when I noticed that the rope was still partially hanging down there. Whatever he saw forcefully grabbed that rope, causing him to nearly fall. But Kat grabs him, keeping him from going down there. In this moment, they try their best to untie him, but it's too strong. Bobby gets dragged back down into that room and all we can hear is his screams. Shortly after, the bed that the rope is attached to comes crashing into Clark and Kat, sending them down there with him. Kat ends up chasing Bobby as he is being dragged through one of the doors sitting on the wall. When she realizes she can't go through there, she runs to another room trying to find him. And in that moment, the door opens again, and Clark knows he needs to get out of there. So he escapes through a broken ceiling cover and calls out for Kat as he runs deeper into the space. That's when he finds a door that leads him into a dark room where the only light is from a Christmas tree. When he walks around the tree, he sees someone sitting there. but it's so dark that he cannot see. That is until whatever it is turns on the lamp, revealing what looks like an upper half of a human body sitting on a chair. And seconds later, what seems like a woman emerges, but her movements are extremely abnormal and honestly terrifying. Clark takes off running as it comes screaming after him. That's when he finds himself in a room that looks like a tiled swimming pool version of the rooms that he had saw before. Then it appears that he has reached a dead end. And there he hears Kat calling for help, begging him to let her in. She's on the other side of this wall, but he can't figure out how to get to her. He sets down the camera and rushes over to where her voice is. The problem is, he sees a wall while she just sees glass. And as they're trying to figure it out, Kat notices something behind him. The camera gets picked up by someone or something, and then suddenly goes dark. That is the voicemail that Mary received one night from Clark. Before he called, she was sleeping in bed, dreaming about the trauma she faced as a child. Her mother's mental illness was the cause of that trauma. She would barricade the doors and put newspaper on the windows, never letting Mary go outside. Her mother was in a constant state of psychosis, and Mary often finds herself back in these moments. And it always ends with the destruction of her childhood home, snapping her out of it. Then when she hears Clark's voicemail, she knows something is wrong. The next day, she goes to his furniture store, and although his car is still parked outside, he doesn't appear to be there. Also, there are bills shoved into the bottom of the door. It's clear that no one has been in or out of there for a long time. And when Mary walks inside, of course, there's no one there. That's when she decides to check downstairs and finds everything Clark had been doing. She sees the whiteboard where he drew a full map of this place, and a light shining directly on the wall where he placed the tape to outline the door. She takes off her coat and approaches it, and when she sees a fly go through the wall, she is in disbelief. She reaches her finger through and then eventually steps inside. That is the moment she realizes it's real. Once she's inside, she begins wandering around, curious about this place, but mostly looking for Clark. She finds herself at this wall and begins examining these eerie drawings and writings all over it. What is the most prominent is this massive dark figure holding up what seems to be a person towards a window. That's when she hears something behind her. It's Clark, lurking around the corner. When she asks him why he's hiding, he says that she's being too loud. When she asks how long he's been there, before he could even answer, there is a loud thud coming from where she just was. So he begins walking backwards towards her, reassuring that she knows him and everything's gonna be okay. She was so distracted by these large thuds getting closer and closer to her that she didn't realize that Clark inched behind her, and that's where he was planning an attack, suddenly putting her in a chokehold until she fell unconscious. That's when she woke up inside of a kitchen, sitting tied to a chair at a dining table. Clark is setting plates down in front of her, himself, and what appears to be a man, but it's not a man. Then she notices there are two similar creatures standing nearby. This is where he decides to demonstrate more things about this place. For example, that these human-like creatures are not humans. You can stab them or cut them open and they won't feel a thing. And the part that intrigues him the most is that you can eat their insides. When he notices that she's not impressed, he goes over to the refrigerator and opens it. And when Mary looks inside, it sends chills down her spine. On the bottom shelf of this refrigerator is Kat's head, and it seems like Clark may have forgot it was there. But regardless of this, he grabs a drink out of the fridge and sits directly across the table from Mary. As she tries her best to get him to untie her, little does she know, he had other plans. He wants her to admit that she was wrong about him, but not in the way that you would expect. Clark wants to do roleplay again, the same way that they did before. Well, almost the same way. Because to him, words are not enough. She has to look the part as well. And for context, his wife who left him had red hair, and so does this human-like creature standing behind him. So he gets up, grabs the knife, and scalps the creature. Once he's done, he puts it on Mary's head like a wig. And this is the moment where I knew this man was insane. Throughout this roleplay, she endures Clark's outbursts until she can't anymore. She interrupts him, telling him the real reason why his wife left him. It wasn't the late nights or the drinking. It was the lack of accountability that he had, as he blamed everyone and everything else for his problems. She says that it's all his fault, and then cuts him deep by repeating the same exact words that he told her. It's just the way his brain is wired. From this statement, he cracks, asking how he can stop. But she reveals that she has no idea. As much as she has tried, she cannot help him. And that's when, for a moment, it appears to me that she is thinking back to her own childhood, specifically how she couldn't help her own mother. And that's the moment where she realized that she couldn't save anyone. This breaks him, and he comes to the realization that he doesn't want to change, and Mary tells him not to. He reveals that he actually likes this place, and it's the only place where he feels like he belongs. So she tells him to stay, but just let her go. As he begins to cut her loose, he apologizes. But then out of nowhere, the entity that he scalped bolts across the room, running into a corner and screaming in fear. And that's where the most horrifying of them all emerges. It's an entity that looks like a misremembered version of Clark in the pirate costume. Clark tries his best to reassure it that everything's okay, especially now that Mary said that there's nothing wrong with them and he could stay. And in that moment, the entity picks him up and brings him close, glaring past him at Mary before taking a bite out of his shoulder. Clark begins screaming in pain, and Mary quickly makes a run for it after seeing it brutally take his life. She rushes out of the door and finds herself in this large room with misremembered houses fashioned like a suburban neighborhood. When the door at the end of it doesn't open, she sees the entity dragging Clark's bloody body towards her. So, with no other choice, she runs into one of the houses, going through and around a number of obstacles, even hurting her ankle before reaching this place that gave me the worst anxiety. The thing is coming after her, and the only way out is the staircase, and the staircase is directly over that horrifying pit of darkness. But thankfully, she makes it through the door in the ceiling. When she goes through the door, she finds herself in a similar downstairs room, kind of like the one that this all started in. And regardless of it not being the same, she knows to run upstairs to the main part of the store. But that's where she's met with a bunch of lounge chairs positioned in a circle around a caveman cutout playing that same recording. And also she notices these blue tanks placed all around the room. She limps towards the doors hoping to find an escape, but then she realizes this is just another room. Her only option now is to fight, and she does. When it gets close to her, she swings this massive coat hanger, breaking his wooden leg. As she stumbles to get away, she trips over the caveman cutout, triggering those tanks to go off. Smoke fills the room and lights begin to flicker, and that's when she notices the entity is quickly crawling towards her. She forces herself on her feet and begins running towards a small opening in the wall. But then she's sprayed in the face by one of the tanks and she collapses for a moment. But the moment was too long because now the entity is right on top of her. She tries her best to push his face away. Then she reaches into her pocket to grab that piece of concrete that she has been holding on to, the same one with the handprint from her childhood home. Once she has it in her hand, she begins smashing his face until it breaks. This gives her time to get up and slip through the wall. And when she's halfway through, she stops, looking back at the entity that is now clawing its way trying to get her. Then she turns away and continues through the hall. But little did she know there would be someone in a yellow suit standing at the end of it, and they begin lighting her up with that gas. She manages to make it through, and it is revealed that they are just normal people, also confused about how she got in there. That's when she's dragged inside of this huge place where more people in yellow suits and lab coats are surrounding her. And after this, they run her through a few tests before escorting her to a room. And on the way to that room, she sees that they managed to capture the pirate entity, restraining it as it lay lifeless on the table. And we also see an entire room full of those cardboard cutouts of the caveman. So it's very clear that whoever these people are, they were the ones who were leaving it there. Mary sits down in this room before a man in a lab coat enters. He wants to ask her questions like, how did she get in there? And why was she at the furniture store to begin with? When she reveals that she was looking for someone, he pulls out an image of Clark, while also redacting the part of the photo that showed the pirate entity. At this point, she's tired of questions and all she wants is answers. And that's when he reveals that he works for Async, a company that used to manufacture MRI machines until they found this very strange place. His job is to find anything he can about this place. And as he's speaking, I felt like I could hear the same excitement in his voice that I heard in Clark's. And that's when he realizes that Mary does understand the complexities of that place. She knows he wants to know what she saw, but her question is, will they let her go afterwards? That's when he reveals that that decision is not up to him. As he continues to try and pry into her experience, she realizes they're not going to let her go. She begins to dissociate, and we're left seeing images of this world inside of the back rooms, one that reflects misremembered versions of what's happening on the outside, then revealing a misremembered version of her sitting in that room. And the film ends as we stare into the face of this version of her. An open ending that left the audience wanting nothing but answers. With that being said, thank you for coming to my house of spoilers. I really hope you enjoyed your time. And if you made it this far, do not let anyone ever tell you again that you have a short attention span. With that being said, if you want to come back for more spoilers, make sure you're following because I'm always going to give them to you. And of course, I want to know your thoughts. Drop which one you want me to do next in the comments section.